much. Actually happy to be here because, yeah, last time I've been visiting and speaking on this event was like 5 years ago or something, and during this period of time a lot of things changed. Yeah, so I'm happy to see here some of the familiar faces, some friends or former colleagues. So some of you perhaps don't know me, and I would like to share a bit of word about who am I. I'm an engineer by DNA. I started as a software engineer writing code in .NET and Java around 21 years ago. And during this course of time I have been transiting through different roles, mainly in financial services industry, being in project manager role, line manager role, setting up different capabilities across different companies. And mainly today I'm with Ness. I joined the company just recently in the beginning of this year, and yeah, I'm enjoying the journey with the company, and I would like to share a bit of a word about the company itself. So we have been established in Riga 5 years ago, and with acquisition a few years ago we are actually expanding in Riga, and the history of the company comes down to beginning of 2000s, where in United States, one of the financiers, who was Zev Wolfson, quite famous philanthropist, established company in Israel, which consisted of six smaller companies that did completely different things. And hence the name of the company is Ness. In the original language from Hebrew actually means miracle. So all these 6 companies, which actually did some different things in different directions, with the help of certain financing, actually grew into the biggest IT company in Israel at the time, providing services for the defense companies and beyond. And during the course of the time, of course, the company has been expanded across the world, and currently we have quite a few offices in Europe, and we are also covering Central Asia and North America, where our main clients are located. What is worth mentioning, that our company is not big, so we're quite small and nimble. Although we're quite distributed and global, we're only 3,500 employees, and mostly our employees are senior engineers. So we're mostly, on average, like in Riga office, we're 12 years of industry experience. So those are mainly experienced people who would like to kind of join maybe some less hierarchical organization, and this is what we are. Our main strengths or focuses is actually cloud. One of our focus areas is AWS, which is also one of the things that I myself am very passionate about, and I joined the company mainly because, and also because of this capability of having a lot of experience behind within the team with the cloud transformations and cloud migrations. So our main strength is AWS. We're actually one of the premier consulting partners for Amazon. Also, we have quite a few people that are Azure proficient, and we have quite a big community which actually is doing lots of different data engineering related activities. And Confluence, Snowflake are our main partners and platforms that we use on a daily basis when we work with the clients. Speaking about the clients, I usually don't have a possibility to disclose the names, but the clients are mostly located in Manhattan and bigger hubs, financial hubs in Europe. Our main capability in terms of domain is actually financial services. So if you are proficient in financial services and would like to grow your knowledge in working for financial institutions, this is the right place to be. So this is a few words about the company, and I would like to actually recall a bit some time back for those who have been in industry since 2000s, and recall one interesting period in industry as such in Riga, where the first distributed teams were established. So I'd like to ask you a question for those who are in industry, maybe from those times. Do you memorize or know which was the year when the first quite major significantly distributed team was established.
Beginning of 90s or end of 80s?
Beginning of, sorry?
90s?
90s?
Or
Yeah.
end of 80s?
Yeah, okay. Thanks, and you perhaps are referring to some of the companies that were like Exagen, Dati, who were working with American companies at the time. Exactly, yeah. So this is really interesting fact that at the time, these pilots of having the remote teams were challenged by the remoteness of the setup, right? And this is what we went through during COVID times, that people that have used to work with remote teams when the time difference is 12 hours more was not actually a barrier for those which were transit. Yes, please.
So internet appeared in Latvia in 91, so I would guess 92.
Okay, yeah, but there is an interesting article, white paper I would say, which is called Fully Distributed Scrum, the secret sauce of hyper-productive offshore development teams, which was co-authored by the co-author of Scrum, Jeff Sutherland, and a few other folks from the American companies that actually shared a bit of an insight what actually first distributed Scrum experience was at the time. And what is interesting, that they mentioned actually this distributed team over 50 people that was across US and Russia, which actually was mainly the Exagen company that at the time was the first pioneer of having these distributed setups, these distributed setups amongst the IT industry companies here in Riga. So yeah, experience was there. So some of the people perhaps memorized that the bigger projects was usually like in Australia or in US were ramped up for several weeks and maybe for several months on-site work that was happening to gather the requirements, and then actually for many months or years working remotely without actual touch with the people, mostly with teleconferences and on the remote tooling. So this was the experience which actually we had in industry, and then there came 2020. So what exactly happened 2020? That is one of the questions which we will start with. So there is a combined research which was done by Berkeley, Microsoft, and MIT to look into the first months of COVID, which touched upon the organization in Microsoft. So they did an analysis, they surveyed the employees and did some research, and out came with some interesting observations. So first of all, what they have seen that it was of high importance, the presence and the strength of interpersonal ties. So if you had a background relationship with some of the people in the organization, which is, well, if we speak about Microsoft, it's quite huge, also hierarchical, and has stretch very global, across the globe. So if you haven't had any relationships with people, or the network was quite small, then you were doomed. Yeah? So this actually shows, this graph here on the left shows how much number of bridging ties have been used on a daily basis in the work process. Basically, whenever COVID hit, those guys which didn't have too much ties actually became siloed. So they started to work on their own. Mostly they were not communicating with the peers, and those peers with whom they had the contact were basically main source of information around what actually happens in organization. So this is one hit that actually was present in Microsoft. I would say that it's not the only company that had similar kind of experiences. At the time I was in another company, and I've seen that the similar effect has hit us. It was a small startup at the time, and it was growing big and rapidly, and actually at the time of growth it was very much hard to understand basically who is new, what are the relationships, and how the organization is growing, and with whom you should speak. So this was one observation. The other observation was that there was enormous growth in amount of talk time with peers, which actually balanced the fact of the matter that actually those who didn't have any network, they had to somehow compensate that. So people got on the calls, they got on the late communications with the clients and late evenings and so on and so forth. So that was another hit, another impact that hit us also from the, I would say, work-life balance perspective. And yeah, that's something that I personally have experienced when we were going through one bigger organization and program which I was part in, where the call sequence and call experience was so enormously exhausting that at the end of the day you didn't even understood where you are actually, in which time zone, yeah? Especially if you have worked in a project which spanned from US to Hong Kong and Europe, somewhere in the middle. So yeah, basically the main findings were that those teams or smaller groups which had not had good relationships were silent and in some sense doomed in terms of informational sharing. So complex things were blocked. You could not understand what complexity happens around your organization or your team. And this was one of the important things that evolved then further down some of the solutions that we can observe nowadays. So in a nutshell, if we take a look of and compare what happened and how we worked before COVID and how we're working today, or maybe sometime post-COVID, actually there are like some few things that are worth highlighting. So first of all, it's cultural heuristics. So if we speak about how usually we onboard today into some of the teams, you would rather go to the office, you would meet some people, you would mingle with the culture, you would see faces, see reactions, see maybe some values of the people that are expressed in some non-work related activities, and you mingle with the culture in some sort of a heuristic way. So basically you see, you feel, you somehow relate that to your past experience, you match it, and actually you mingle. But what has changed is that during pandemic, of course, it was not possible. So basically you onboard and all you have is just few calls which onboard you, and then you just start working and actually yeah, sharing some time during maybe usual routines. And what actually that's triggered in the industry or in the work approach is that the culture actually, to raising the question, that culture actually should be designed. But culture, if we work fully remotely, should be somehow yeah, designed in a way that everybody aligns with the fact that there are some certain behaviors or certain practices, norms that needs to be complied with or aligned within the team. So if you're in the office, of course that comes naturally, but if you're on remote, yeah, sharing of this information is blocked and it's not really possible to get to the state of having a kind of a homogeneous culture across the team. So another thing that popped up is, of course, work-life balance, which changed to work-life integration. So we actually, from work in office, we switched to work at home, which meant for us as individuals, for persons, for each of us, some of the integration in terms of work which came down to our personal life. And this integration actually continues if you work in remote. Yeah, you still somehow juggle with your personal life, and this is another challenge that came down with the changes that we passed through. Another thing that was mentioning is the synchronous and asynchronous way of communicating, and here was mentioning that yeah, COVID triggered this asynchronous way of working, that yeah, not necessarily you need to trigger the meeting to actually clarify some of the things, and you can work without bugging some of the colleagues. Well, although questionable if that is the most efficient way to work, and we will touch upon that a bit later. There are a few other things that I will touch shortly. It's office-centric is usually the design of the space. Yeah, so if we speak about the design of the space, it usually is given. Yeah, so when you come over to the office, it's basically available for all, and you somehow adapt to what you have at the office. But if we speak about the home office, well, usually you need some workplace flexibility, which means that if it's digital-centric, if it's at home, you build your own environment as you would have it for your personal needs. And yeah, most important, if we speak about the relationships, what I feel and I see that the remote work mostly triggers relationship change towards a more transactional approach. So basically you are interchanging information, you are sharing maybe some deliverables, but relationship part, unfortunately, if you are not present in the office, lacks of presence. And this is most pity thing perhaps out of all the change. Yeah, and if we speak about the culture itself, yeah, so cultural design, what that means. There is this pyramid called, this cultural pyramid that was called up by Edgar Stein, who was an MIT professor, and he actually defined what, from his perspective, culture is. And he broke down the culture in three distinct layers, where the top one is something that is visible, that you can observe. For instance, if you come over to the office, when you mingle with the team, you can see what are the team's cultural expressions. And they are usually expressed with different artifacts. For instance, yeah, behaviors, how people are behaving, different processes, how people attend meetings, are they late for stand-ups, are they performing normal stand-up practices or not. And yeah, this is what is seen. But then there is a middle layer which actually glues together the roots of the culture. Yeah? The roots are at the bottom, and then you have the beliefs, which is gluing these actionable things with actually assumptions how to solve things. So beliefs is the most important part of the culture, where we as individuals with very much specific backgrounds of each of us, historical, where we came from, we have different beliefs and different worldviews, and those beliefs actually are something that is having a baseline in how we act. Assumptions, on the other hand, is something that is, I would say, stated maybe differently, solutions which are taken for granted. So those are the ways how we solve things by default. Yeah? So we assume in some different environments how we would solve things, and automatically perhaps just act on things perceiving our background of these assumptions. And this is what is actually the baseline of the culture, and also questioning the three layers of the culture was the effect of the COVID. So what is the root cause of these questions that were asked, that we are asking during the course of this transition? Yeah? So for instance, for the artifacts, for the observable behavior, usual question would be why these people on the call would act this or that. Why they are somehow irritated? Do we know what is the reason behind the computer at their home with their children, maybe with their family, and so on? Why some people are late? Maybe it's a technological problem, maybe it's a problem of their broadband internet. Yeah? We don't know, sometimes it breaks, and unfortunately we should react and adapt to that differently than it was before. We should be more democratic in terms of evaluating how this actually perceives the performance of the team and individuals in particular. So other questions, like if it's actually efficient to work from 8 to 22 or to 10 o'clock in the evening, and if it's efficient, like how that mingles with the overall culture. One of the questions that I asked myself when I came in the situation of COVID was actually, was the shift of how I work affected somehow my productivity? Yeah, and I could not receive an answer because there was just no cultural events in the company. I could not share my experience with any other teammates, and I had an assumption that I got to have. Yeah, and if we speak about the underlying assumptions, yeah, of course, it's always a question how to solve things. How to solve things if, for instance, there is overreaction, there are some different emotions that we don't see the reason behind. And that is also one of the questions that popped up, and not always you had an answer on that, just because it's a remote work. So what is the proposed solution, or at least how we tackled in our projects the problem of having these changes? Yeah, I would say that there is a notion of the operating model. If you have heard about operating model, yeah, this is something that brings down your operations of the company, of the team, or maybe you can perceive it also as operations of your individual work. Yeah, it breaks down to several concepts or several directions which are named here. So basically, You usually, when you operate, you have these resources, you have location where you operate, you have some value which you produce, and then you have the organization which surrounds you. Also, you operate with information, and you have some certain worked out system how to operate with all of these components. And during transition between pre-COVID and post-COVID, almost all, or I would say all of these elements in our daily work actually had an effect. So we will speak, for instance, about resources. First of all, our resources in our teamwork had that change that actually decreased amount of tacit knowledge that we consumed from the team. So that is also a resource. If you have less energy, if you have less interaction with the team, that is somehow affecting your performance. Less face-to-face trainings, meetings, also one of the resources where you can receive some valuable information about person's mood, about person's perhaps background of his work progress today, and so on and so forth. New skill requirements. Sometimes change in work as remote would also require some of the new skills. For instance, ramping up some of the new tools that you need to use on a daily basis. And of course, your time is a precious resource, which sometimes if you are required to be on the call in the late evenings, actually collaborate with some colleagues in other places or even in one location, you need to be available. And that's also a resource. That all actually had a certain general impact. If we speak about the other elements, for instance, organization, we definitely have transited through the organizational change where there were new functions established, like for instance well-being specialists that came on board of the company, and I hope it's a good sign of thinking more about people. We have new constraints, tax legal constraints that today for remote workers are still one binding element. If you would like to work, for instance, from Canary Islands or from Kazakhstan, it will be still different in terms of legal and tax, and for you it might cause some problems if you stay there in the country for some longer time. So this is still on the agenda, but we today ripe the fruits of this possibility to have this distributed organization. And of course, new norms and rules, different ways how we actually regulate remoteness. In different organizations there are some specific policies established that would regulate how you interact with the team if you are on remote. If we speak about systems, how we work, of course this also had some new stuff that came into our daily operations. Of course this is new tools. We know that, if you have seen the curve of adoption of Teams during 2020s, 2021 and 2022, then it was skyrocketing. If you have seen the share of Zoom, so basically adoption of Microsoft Teams is very much coincides and reflects how Zoom grew during the time. So that is one. So we switched to instant messaging immediately, and it's there for the stay. Some other tools like dashboards, interactive dashboards like Miro, so became very enormously popular. So we need to learn new things, new tools, and that also changed the agenda. And if we speak about tools and how we interact with information, how we operate with information, there is this notion of media leanness, concept of media leanness. And in some ways, there are some specific artifacts or specific ways how we can communicate, which is leaner and which is richer. So this is like a classical scale and range between having a document as a means of communicating information and having a face-to-face as the most richest way how to convey information. And what industry actually went through is actually that they switched and they started to experiment on asynchronous way of communicating. So what did that bring to us? So first of all, we learned that lean communication is one of the ways how we can, lean media for asynchronous communication was one of the best ways how to convene actually only simple information. And if that information came down to more complexity, apart from just being routine information, it was more complex, more rich in terms of depth, in terms of different details. it pushed us to actually come down to synchronous. And during this experimentation, there were, of course, failures and wishes to actually switch to this fully asynchronous. But unfortunately, this didn't got any results. At least from my experience, you need to choose between these different modes. And if we speak about synchronous versus asynchronous, you need to choose where to use which. One of the notion about synchronicity and asynchronicity of communication is rooted in the fact that there are operational type of things and there are creativity techniques and innovation. So when we speak about innovation, that usually is something that needs way much broader set of information, feelings, ideas, mingling, communication, and so forth. And without having the face-to-face meeting in one place for the people, it's really hard to actually innovate. It's really hard to share the ideas and some of the things that might not have this kind of grasp of the feeling that you can have in comparison with some electronic media or simple things. So yeah, this switch was there, but yeah, it failed, and we learned that actually still with synchronous interchange of information comes down also a lot of creativity and innovation. Yeah.
Sorry, can you switch back?
Yep.
What is content development and team selection?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we speak about content development, for instance, what I experienced during the first, I would say, weeks of COVID, the first months of COVID, is extensive need for knowledge sharing, and this knowledge sharing actually pushed us in our teams to frequently record meetings. Yeah, so this is content. Yeah, so if previously before COVID we were speaking about hey, let's do a knowledge sharing in our team. Yeah, what we do, we just gather together or come down to the folk with different folks in the room, and we ask questions. Yeah. So on the other hand, in the COVID period, yeah, at least I myself in a bigger program which accounted for 170 people, was really struggling about like knowing how this works. And the first thing was actually to ask colleagues to video record whatever they are sharing with the others, yeah, which actually narrowed down the gap of this network effect, which I showed in the beginning, that there was like silos, pockets of people that didn't have the connections to other people, and you could not share the information. So one of the ways was actually to ask to record and create this content so that it's shareable. Yeah. Okay? All right, let's move on. We have a few more topics, and actually, what I wanted to also highlight is that the people that boarded projects, that was also an interesting separate journey. So during the period of COVID, of course, people changed jobs, and it was a separate journey actually to gain trust in the team. Yeah? So whenever you boarded the team, of course, everybody were asking themselves, so who is the new guy on the block, and what to wait from him, yeah? So what to expect. And there are different type of approaches how to gain trust. And there's even terminology developed in terms of what type of trusts might be when you're collaborating in the team. So yeah, speaking about three different types of trusts. Yeah, so the classical one, which you see as the S-curve here, is something that actually you pass through the normal cycle of the team. Yeah, normal evolution of the team. You have forming, you have storming, you have norming, performing. Yeah, and the trust grows step by step gradually when you have repeating experiences. So the problem with COVID was that the repeating experiences were very low on the information. So you didn't know anything about the colleagues, and you could expect whatever, right? So when you have guys in the room, you usually have some sort of experience of communicating or having some sort of interaction. And yeah, of course, in the COVID, you would likely would like to be on this swift trust curve, because if you would like to board a new company, usually, of course, it's very, very tough time for you to actually adopt to the new culture, to the new norms, new different concepts, and yeah, you would like rather to have this swift trust approach in perceiving you from the team. What is interesting that this swift trust is defined mostly for the teams and formations where people are very standardized in their operations and their way of working, their skills, and how they approach their work. So one of the good examples for this Swift trust is flight attendants. Yeah? So if you are a flight attendant, you usually fly to from one point to the second point, and then you board another team, another plane, completely different people. But how this trust is gained, it's just knowledge that these guys have been trained, they work for the company, they do the same, they share the culture and so on. So yeah, the research and the definitions show that this Swift trust actually is gained with a lot of good background in training and cultural kind of mingling of the roles. But yeah, mostly those roles are more or less similar, if they're not, so to speak, more like in the agile world, like we say, T-shaped skills, which are quite broad experiences and differences in knowledge and capabilities. Then, yeah, in this case, you would be having rather this Swift trust. Yeah, there is one more trust, which is passable trust, which we need just to have a absolutely minimum set or minimum threshold to actually communicate with people. So usually that comes with references. You have some CVs, you have some guys that tell you something about the new guy, and then you trust that. And yeah, you just then with your experience see how it goes and how it unfolds. Yeah. What I can also mention that according to some suggestions in my personal experience, there are three things that might help with actually coping with this remoteness of the work and remoteness with the team and stress that might be caused by working within the kind of very, very much siloed environment. So those three things are actually focusing on mental health, continuing repeatedly actually apply disciplined practices in your daily work, and having a transparency. So all those practices there, which can be also seen here, like having different operational activities in Scrum, attending those in very disciplined way, having regular feedbacks, reporting upwards to your manager, to your teammates who need to know your progress, is important just to share the knowledge and have your also psychological safety. Some psychologists say that one of the best ways to cope with stress is actually to clean your room. Yeah, and that somehow coincides with this notion that actually there are regular practices in our life that we do that are very, very repeatable and helps us just to recharge our complex world around us, which we are facing with our quite intellectually demanding professions. And this is actually about that. Yeah? Doing some routine which might distract you from the complexity and which might help you with your also mental health in some way. Transparency, well, obvious that transparency is very important if you're working on remote. And here I might also mention that I would say last 10-year survey of the State of Development report shares two interesting facts. Basically, how to measure performance of the team. Yeah, for the last around 10 years, the stable top facts show that most companies actually are focusing on two things. Yeah, how to measure performance and how to show that you are progressing. One thing is showing the done tasks or progress. Well, usually it's Jira or your task management system where you have this kind of checklist which you check mark each time that something is finished. And the other most important one is the working software. Yeah, so unless you have a build which is actually compiling, unless you have test run that is not failing, yeah, there is no progress or there is some kind of impediment around the progress. And having transparency on these things is very much important when you work on remote, because you cannot share this context in between if you're not in the office. Yeah, and well, on the mental health, I can say that all those classical things that might be very much not specific to IT, helping others, being open to help from others, not being kind of maybe too much of an expert, will be open to kind of some advice, maybe some feedback, having a stretch assignments, yeah, that works even in intellectual work, not only in physical, yeah, having some sort of exercise of your intellectual capacity, having continuous improvements, and most importantly self-awareness, which actually helped both myself and I've seen some of the folks in the team to actually cope with the this intransparency of the results when you know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you know that during the course of maybe the last 10 years this is not yourself. Basically you just are captive of the situation of the code.
And it's really bad that it's not the trend data, it's like a common problem. Nobody's open to help, nobody's trying to help.
But it helps. It helps with your mental state if you, especially working on remote. If you are working in the team and in office, at least you can have a healthy conflict or whatever. But when you are remote, you actually even don't know whether it's a healthy conflict, right? So, okay. A few more things, So, speaking about the resilient culture, so we have been passing through this journey of COVID when information was not shared, it was quite complex, and we've seen that network of trust was not so big. You have to build it. Well, there is this notion of group resilience, or the term resilience. What does that mean actually? And that means that how flexible you are to the obstacles of surroundings which might challenge you suddenly. If you have seen, there's one movie called Everest that was quite popular in theaters some years ago, which is based actually on a story which brings us down to 1996, which was the day, which was the most deadliest day at the time Mount Everest expedition history. And the story unravels actually around two personalities. One is the John Krakauer, which was the American journalist, and Anatoly Bukreyev, who was the very major, very senior mountaineer and alpinist, who actually conquered a lot of 8,000 meter peaks and was guiding the team at the time of disaster. So the story unravels in the fact that actually there was quite a good prepared professionals that were guiding the team, although for some reason they were unexpectedly hit by the storm and a lot of people died. Actually, there was a bit of a conflict between the American and between the Russian in terms of the perception of how Russian senior helped with saving lives. And there was a lot of criticism about how this professional actually acted in a way that he hadn't saved like 100% of the people that were in this disaster. And what is interesting that at the time, just recently, Stanford University made research about actually what mountain expeditions teach us in terms of the resilient culture. How to cope with these different stressful situations, where do we need to be flexible, where do we need to be more operational, so to speak. And what they found that there are two modes of operating our lives, of operating ourselves in our team. One was actually our way up, and the other one is the way down. So, and these peaks and bumps and ups and downs are usually happening during the course of our lives, during the course of our sprints, releases, and so on and so forth. And what is interesting, that they researched and they saw that it's important when you are summiting the peak or you're trying to achieve some goals, that you have very collectivistic mind, that you take in consideration every single aspect or viewpoint from all of the group that is trying to achieve something. But when the circumstances turn bad, it is very important that there is someone that takes the charge and someone that tries to push the solution, even sometimes unpopular. And it is very important to have the safety in this progress, which means that, well, you need to be prepared and have these capabilities, or actually rely that somebody else can drive you to that. So, it's important to be resilient as a group, which means that, well, if sometimes in a bad time somebody steps up and takes unpopular decisions, maybe that's for your good. And we experience that maybe in teamwork, on a daily basis, very, very regularly. So, I would say almost last but not least, the thing around psychological safety, because, well, if we speak about our intellectual work, psychological safety is the one safety that we need. So according to many researchers, we know that to create an innovative team, we do need a safety. So if your ideas are threatened, if you are approached a lot with criticism, Yeah, that's a very bad sign in terms of having a good kind of a growth of different products and services. And yeah, of course, you need to build that in your team operating model. Yeah. So yeah, step by step, having this first layer of having ability to ask for help, yeah, establishing in the team culture for helping each other. Then stepwise having ability to actually start posing more relevant questions, maybe some silly questions which you can just speak and have free open discussion, having disagreements which might be healthy as well. And then stepping up on the third level when you can challenge the status quo of the authority. Yeah? So this is a very, very much important aspect of the culture. Sometimes you have the authority, I don't know, the most senior guy on the block, and he makes the whole architectural decisions. Yeah. So what do you do with that? Yeah. Is that something that will help you in cases of disaster or not? Yeah. So these are the questions. Yeah. So yeah, out of that summarizing, I would say that there is a bit of a research also on the future outlook. Yeah. So how employees are looking in the future in terms of the hopes and fears about this new mode of operations, how this remote work actually works. For them and for us, for all. And there are a few things to note down. Yeah? So first of all, yeah, most of the survey, and this was actually McKinsey Reimagined Work Employee Survey done last year, maybe not so much up to date with current realities this year, but still a lot of people were actually eager to see more flexibility in day-to-day work, more well-being being provided by the employers, and having the effect of the bottom line, basically, economics, and having more prosperity from having less commute and so on and so forth. On the other hand, a lot of risks have been seen in that fact that there is a reduction in collaboration. Yeah, so yeah, we have seen that in pandemics. We see that still here. Yeah, so reduction of collaboration is the most challenging thing that we need to face. And I would say that from my experience, the most challenged group in IT nowadays are actually juniors, mid-level specialists. That don't possess this context, don't have the time maybe to mingle with the team if they work remotely, and that poses enormous amount of challenges for the guys who are actually mentoring them. So yeah, on this note, I would like to maybe encourage everyone to keep our juniors, our less senior team members in the group also on the loop, and not forget about them. Yeah, that's it from my side. Yeah, please.
There was a good point about relationships versus transactions.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, have you actually come up with some set of rules that helps you approach these transactions? Focus on precise formulations, deliverables, and stuff. I mean, do you have some set of rules for that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I will share maybe, I don't know if I have time, but a few words on how I try to tackle this. So first of all, we tried in one of our teams to perform a team relaunches. Yeah, so what that means that we looked through, well would it be like a retrospective or just separate meeting quarterly to reestablish some of the things around our operating model. Yeah, just rethink if something has changed. Yeah, so we did that in one of our teams. It was one of the firefights for myself and for my teammates that made the progress, and we actually did the success in releasing one piece of software. But yeah, what helped us is actually to establish these common norms or common things that were under the surface. So one of the examples was actually when I entered the project, speaking about norms, I was amazed that I could not understand why different people act in the way that they act. Was that a kind of a problem of their performance or of their understanding? And what helped actually was so-called, as I call it now, responsibility poker. Yeah? So what we did, we actually did a round of write-downs of responsibility of each team member, what he felt he is responsible for. And yeah, everybody wrote this down without sharing the experience or making it public. And when I collected the information, I have uncovered the different gaps in what actually people need. Yeah, so basically to operate normal project or normal team, you just don't have like enough of QA knowledge. So it just generally boils down to that fact that either you train or you hire, and you need to close that gap. And you can, of course, approach that with some sort of norms or agreements, how to tackle this with, for instance, agreements with clients, that the client understands that we don't have that capacity of knowledge yet, but we will build it. And that somehow like softens the pressure around the delivery. So yeah, this operating model review or relaunches, regular relaunches actually helped us to actually uncover these gaps and somehow write those down. What we should do, how we should act, how we should establish the shared understanding of the problem. Yeah, please.
I have a workshop type of question. So imagine you work for a startup that was originally coming from Italy, for example, and now it has grown and is hiring all over the world. But as it often happens, the engineering team, the developers team, is still mainly based in Italy. And you are approached by a developer who has recently joined the team. He or she asks for an advice. So he joined the team recently and quickly realized that, first of all, on the daily stand-ups, that only consist of the engineering team's daily stand-ups. Because now everyone has to speak English, it causes some, it feels that it causes some discomfort, because it's not like it's Scandinavia and Italy, and some people speak better, even among young people, some people speak worse. So it makes people, create some problems expressing the thoughts, and it pushes, creates this pressure on this new guy, because he doesn't want to be the reason why everyone has to adjust to him. And then in the Slack channel, also for quick questions, how quick questions, communication still happens in Italian, and he doesn't understand the thing, doesn't understand the jokes, and feels disconnected from the team, and also the fear of missing out something important. So there is a dilemma to ask and again to force basically the team to move to English. The guy doesn't want to be this annoying person who does it, but at the same time it's a problem. So what would be if you have any advice, what would be your practical advice to a person?
I had been in a similar situation myself, actually today in that kind of situation. I work with Romanian colleagues, and you're in the meeting, there are 20 Romanian colleagues, and you enter the meeting and they all speak Romanian, still. So that's sometimes it's complicated, but I have experience of working exactly in this situation with one of the colleagues which was actually based in Israel, which spoke only Russian and Hebrew, but not a single word in English. Very experienced, well kind of made DevOps specialist, and we all were English-speaking people, and of course, client himself was English-speaking. So whenever there was a need to share the results, he spoke in Russian. So it was a bit of a kind of situation which we need to be in that case, just because of the lack of some of the most experienced people, we had to deploy him in the project. But our collective was quite friendly, so we were adapting towards his problems of communicating. So in some times we had people speaking Latvian, in Russian, in English. We just translated. So basically whenever, of course, he spoke in Russian, those who could not understand, we just translated that, including clients. Of course, it was not very maybe polite in front of the client, where that situation came down, but we had an agreement with client that, well, this is the kind of force majeure, and so on. So yes, we actually aligned with him, helped him to actually feel comfortable, and whenever he needs to speak something, he tried to speak in English. Where he could not say a word, we just translated his message.
So, if I understand it correctly, that your advice is to continue in Italian?
No.
In the communication,
I would say
translate, assign a person who will translate.
There were two things. So first of all, we adapted to the situation, but of course, we long term, mid long term, we started to kind of plan for the resourcing that the people are more homogeneous, yeah, and seek for him position which is more back office without like client facing or maybe too much of the people. But of course, those situations happen. You need to be on the team, and in that situation, the first thing is actually to adapt towards his needs so that he feels comfortable, so that he doesn't feel that, hey, I cannot share my report on what I've done and what I can do. Yeah,
so it depends on experience. If you are junior, teach Italian. If you are super experienced guys,
depends on your
stable
culture.
speaking.
Yes, it depends on your company culture. Of course, it's different with each company.
Depends on your value.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Any questions more? Or we are done?
We do have
More
time.
time?
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
All right. Then thank you very much for your
Thank you.
attention.
Say something.
I can just give a comment on the previous one, because there was an easy solution for this. If there was a senior enough black who takes responsibility for this and says, hey, I didn't understand that, could you please repeat that in English? So that the other guy feels more comfortable to understand what they're speaking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is solvable within the team.
Yeah, it takes some effort, additional effort, but yeah, it's all about the culture. How do you solve problems, right? Your assumption, how you solve problems. If assumption of the team or the company where you work is that actually we don't do that, we will not do that. Well, that's the culture, and that's why sometimes strategy is eaten by the culture, and you cannot do too much in that situation. Okay, thank you very much.